Hello my friends, it's been a while since I've done a video like this, but with the newfound popularity of the RAV, I wanted to do a video talking about how to choose a RAV scale. Which scale you pick is pretty important in that that's going to define what you can do with that instrument. Some scales are better for melodic playing, some scales are a little bit better for percussion. So I just want to go through a couple scales that I think would be useful for people who want a variety of sounds and a variety of playing styles available to them. So we're going to take a look at 4 different instruments that I think are good places to start for new players, and just kind of talk about scales in general. So let's take a look. So first on my list is the classic B Celtic. This is a scale that I'd say 50 or 60% of my students purchase as their first instrument. And it's a great place to start because there's not a lot of dissonance, and there are a ton of songs on handpan, on hung, and on the RAV using this scale. So if it's something that you connect with, it's worth picking this one up, as well as the B Kurd, which is pretty much the same scale as the B Celtic, except it has a G at the bottom here, so it's 1 note more than this scale. The Celtic is good for melodic and percussive playing. It has a lot of variability in what you can do with it, and I find myself drawn very much to this if I'm playing with other people or if I'm just trying to compose something myself, because it's a very familiar scale for people who've listened to this style of music. Along with the B Celtic, the D Celtic is a great place to start as well. The D is just a little bit higher, so sometimes the upper notes are a little more difficult to get a clear sound on. But it's not an issue once you get to understand the striking potential on it. So this is the B Celtic. Dyads. So what makes this a particularly easy scale is that the center note, combined with every other note on the scale, is very melodic. The half steps aren't very dissonant at all, and you have a very fluid and sort of yogic progression on this scale. So you can really easily pick one note and just switch our root note, which is the bottom half, also, the center note and the octave are to the right on the 3. And what's nice about this is that this is kind of the hinge point of the scale. So you have very easy access to that note. On the Kurd, it's on the left-hand side, but it just allows for easier playing. Here are 2 quick sound examples of the B Celtic. So just for the sake of comparison, this is the B Kurd. The only note that's different on the scale from the B Celtic is this note here, this G. This expands your chordal potential. So if you're somebody who really wants a lot of options, you want a lot of access to dyads, triads, and just different progressions, I would say go with the Kurd over the Celtic. If you're somebody who wants to use it in a more meditative way, I think Celtic is a great place to start because you don't really need to think very much about your playing and where you're going. This requires a little bit more thought just because of the half steps on it. And this is the sound of the B chord. So as I mentioned before, the B Celtic is a fantastic choice for beginners. Same with the B chord. The only real difference between them is that G that I mentioned in the second position. That doesn't really complicate things, so I think it's worth it if you're kind of deciding between the two. If you want to have a little more diversity for songwriting, go with the B chord. If you don't really care about that and you're kind of just using it as ambience, B Celtic is a great choice. Any of the B scales really, with the exception of an oleo, are pretty suitable for all styles of playing. But the Celtic has a very particular feel, and I think it really captures people's interest. So let's take a look at the next scale. So as well as just being a beautiful scale, the G Pygmy has a lot to offer for songwriters. I've heard from percussionists that they feel like the Pygmy scale is a little bit limiting for that style of playing. And that's because the percussive style of playing is kind of limiting in a way. It's focusing more on the rhythm and less on the melody within that. And I think the Pygmy really shines for people who want a variety of chords or triads and who want to have access to a lot of different directions and a lot of different feelings. I think when you're really ding or center note focused, things tend to blend together. But when you think about using the bottom four notes as your root and kind of swapping up the melody in that way, there's a lot to say with this scale. Along with being a great songwriter scale, I would say this is great for yoga. It's great for meditative sort of playing. It's an all-around good scale, and I don't think it's a particularly difficult one. I'd say 30% of my students online have this scale. So it's accessible to people at all levels, and I personally love it. this last selection may come as a bit of a surprise to people because RAV recommends this for more advanced players. I kind of disagree with that assessment. The A integral, I think, is a fantastic and super underutilized scale. It has a lot of potential for people who like percussive instruments, and a lot of potential for people who like to play in a chordal melodic sort of way. But it's an all-around good instrument, and it's very similar to the B chord in a way. So I'm going to show you a couple of things on that, and then we'll talk a little bit about all of these scales together. Alright my friends, I really hope that was useful for you, and I want to say at the end of this as well, despite my suggestions, listen to the scales first and decide which one you connect with, and choose kind of with some of this information and also what resonates with you. An instrument you don't connect with is going to be harder for you to make progress on. Whether that instrument's a tricky scale or not doesn't really matter. I have students who purchase an Oleo scale as their first one, or an Arabian Nights, and although those are trickier scales in comparison to the ones I showed you, it's doable. It's just the interest and the desire to work with them that kind of pushes you forward with them. I think in terms of songwriting, the integral is great, Kurt is fantastic, Pygmy is great. There's a lot of options now. So I think metering your choice with sort of what you hope to do with the instrument is important. So for songwriters, I'd say B chord, integral, and also the Pygmy are great, and they're pretty reasonable beginner scales. If you like more percussive playing, maybe the Middle Eastern scales like the Arabian Nights or an Oleo would work for you. And of course D major as well is another good one. Any of the B scales are going to work kind of in the capacity you want them to, if that's your chosen route for playing. So hope you guys are well, and I hope this was useful for you in kind of finding what RAV would work for you. Feel free to reach out to me via my website. If you're interested in personal lessons about songwriting or just technique, feel free to get in touch as well. It's great to talk to you guys, and I hope to see you soon. Stay well, friends.